My name is Catherine Troutman. Have you ever considered how an important historical event could impact individuals, groups of people, and the entire country? I'm going to tell you about President Kennedy's assassination and the effects it had on my great uncle, his co-workers in the Air Force, and citizens in the United States of America. According to an article published in the New York Times a day after the event, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was shot and killed by an assassin on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. He died of a wound in the brain caused by a rifle bullet that was fired at him as he was riding through a motorcade in downtown Dallas. President Kennedy and Miss Kennedy, Governor Connally and Miss Connally, and a Secret Service agent were in the car. Other than Governor Connally, none of this group was injured in the shooting. The killer fired the rifle from a building just off the motorcade route. President Kennedy, Governor Connally, and Mr. Johnson had just received an enthusiastic welcome from a large crowd in the downtown Dallas area. Lee Harvey Oswald, a 24-year-old warehouse worker who once lived in the Soviet Union, was charged late that night with assassinating President Kennedy. This event had a significant impact on our country. Daniel Pipes, president of the Middle East Forum, discusses 3 ways President Kennedy's assassination is still impacting life in America and around the world. First, he says, had the assassination attempt not succeeded, arguably neither the Vietnam War nor the Great Society expansion of government would have afflicted the United States as they did. Pipes is pointing out that Kennedy's actions taken while he was in office showed that he would have fought to keep the U.S. from entering the Vietnam War. With Kennedy's views, there's probably less chance we would have gotten into a war if he would have done things his way. Second, he says Kennedy's assassination profoundly impaired American liberalism. Pipes is saying that Kennedy was a popular president that displayed liberal values and ideas, and had he been reelected rather than assassinated, he could have had 4 more years to help the liberal movement to become stronger. Third, the Oswald-Ruby catastrophe created an abiding fascination with crazy conspiratorial ideas among otherwise sane people. Pipes' writing shows people came up with so many conspiracy theories trying to figure out if the assassin was carrying out another political organization or country's agenda, and if there were more people involved with him in the shooting. To gather unique information about this event, I interviewed my Uncle Kenneth Frazier. The tragic event of Kennedy's death not only had a national effect, but also had a personal impact on individual Americans like my great uncle. He was in the Air Force working at a military base in Texas when President Kennedy was assassinated. Because of his military position and location at the time of the assassination, he was personally impacted. He not only was affected as a citizen, but as a member of the service. Kenneth described his memories of the tragic event. Kenneth Frazier said he was sitting at his desk in the headquarters office on the base when the assassination of Kennedy took place. He received a phone call from one of his co-workers saying, "Kennedy has been shot." Kenneth initially took this as a joke, and he replied, "And what's the punchline?" His co-worker said, "This is not a joke. Kennedy has been shot and he may die." Kenneth said he remembers feeling a state of shock and sadness. It was an inconceivable event. As he received this phone call, he could see everyone around him receiving the news. The base he was on went under lockdown. Because he was in the military, this had a significant impact on him. The nation didn't know whether to think this was the first step to a larger attack. It put everyone in a panic. Everyone in the nation was glued to their TVs, radios, and newspapers. The nation was on a standstill, waiting to hear more news. The world was experiencing an inconceivable sadness, shock, and anxiety. Being a 22-year-old, Kenneth had never experienced anything like this. Some people had the unnerving feeling that the shooter could not have pulled this off alone, so the others involved in it must still be out there. Seeing the next president, Lyndon Johnson, being sworn in before coming to the Capitol caused a peculiar feeling. Things didn't go back to normal until after New Year's Day. Since the assassination occurred just before Thanksgiving, the holidays were certainly colored by the national sadness. It has been shown that historic events impact people in many different ways. What makes them different is the event's positive or negative impact, and the significance of the effect based on the people involved. As I have shown you, this particular event had ways of negatively impacting different parts of the nation and the world.